Okay, now the final part of the section is called ranges. Now basically, ranges is the corresponding y values to any x values that it talks about. So if it specifies any particular x values, the range is the corresponding y values. So I'll show you how we look for that. So starting with 56a, find the range of this equation for when x is between 5 and 7. Okay, when x is between 5 and 7, x is 5 and 7 is here, and 7 is here. So 5 and 7 is there, isn't it? The corresponding y value would be somewhere over here, and for this one, this corresponding y value is somewhere over here, but I can't really be specific because maybe my lines are a bit crooked. So we'll find the particular y values very critically by using this domain, which are the x values. So what I'm going to do is start by substituting x equals to 5 into the equation. So sub it in. So sub in x equals to 5, just like that. You should get negative 3. So basically, this point here, I'll rub this off. This point here, which corresponds to x equals to 5, is negative 3, that point there. Now I made a hollow circle because it's not including, it's just greater than 5 but not including 5. So make it a hollow circle. Now substitute x equals to 7. Okay? When I sub x equals to 7 into the equation, I get 5. So the corresponding value for 7 for the y is 5. Okay, so again make it a hollow circle because it's not including 7. So the parts of the graph that are between these 2 points is that particular part in yellow. So the particular values of y that satisfy that part of the graph are these parts up to this part here. So all these parts satisfy this part of the graph. Okay, because we're only looking for the range, which is talking about just the y values. That's why I've highlighted just the y-axis. Okay, so this part of the y-axis satisfy this part of the graph. So it's between negative 3 and 5. So how do we write that? Just like that. Y is greater than negative 3, but less than 5. And that's it. So how easy is that? That's pretty much all you need to do for the next few questions. So hopefully that's pretty straightforward. Let's try the next one. B. Find the range of y equals to x squared minus 8x plus 12 when x is between 1 and 3. So luckily they give us the diagram for us. So again, we'll do the same thing. I'm going to sub in x equals to 1 into the equation, like that, and you should get 5. So the corresponding value of 1 in this particular graph is, whoops, okay, my line is very crooked, is 5. And again, I made a hollow circle because it's not including. Okay, it's just greater than 1 but not including. So now substitute x equals to 3, which is going to be sub in 3 into these values. You should get negative 3. So 3, the corresponding value for y is that particular point there, which is corresponding to negative 3. And again, it's going to be hollow. So the parts of the graph that's between those 2 points are those parts of the graph. So the corresponding y values would be those values on the y-axis, okay, which is corresponding to this part of the graph. So what is it, guys? It's going to be greater than negative 3, but less than 5. Just like that for y. Okay, that's it. That's all there is to it. So that's the range for this part of the x values. Now C. Okay, now this time x is between 3 and 7. So between 3 and 7. So I'm going to start by substituting x equals to 3 into the equation, and you should get negative 3. So the corresponding value for x equals to 3 is negative 3 for y. Okay, so that particular point is negative 3 for y. And now I'm going to sub in x equals to 7, which you should get like this, is 5. So the corresponding value of x equals to 7 for y is 5. Just because I found it like this. Okay, and again, it's hollow circles because it's not including those points. So the parts of the graph between this point and this point is that whole part there. But make sure, guys, you don't make a mistake of saying that the range is between this -3 and 5. That's a very common mistake. See how the graph, the yellow part of the graph, is actually from this point here, which is actually the vertex. So this part up to here satisfy the y values, okay, for that particular graph. So all this part here, which is -4 up to 5. Okay, if you like to be specific, if you don't really know how to find that point, basically, guys, it's the vertex. So you can use your x equals 2 minus b on 2a formula to find that point very specifically if you like. Okay, if they don't specify on the graph. So you know what to do then. So the answer to this question is between -4 and 5. But you also got to consider the circles. This one is hollow because this is hollow because this is not equal to. But why do you think this is not hollow? It's colored in. Why do you think that is? It's because only these points are hollow because of the domain or the x values. It's not including. But this part is including. Okay, because any part between these 2 points we include. So this point we do include. Okay, so don't get confused there. So the answer is y is greater or equal to -4, but just less than 5. Okay, so we only put the equal to sign there. So be very careful with this kind of question. Okay, but does that all make sense? Hopefully it's all very logical. So in this kind of question, you're going to think very carefully and not make a mistake of just including the points between this and this. Okay, you're going to also include these parts of the graph as well. Okay. Now finally D, we want to know the range when x is between 1 and 5. Okay, 1 is here, 5 is here. We'll do the same thing by subbing in x equals to 1 first. You should get 5. You can do all the calculation by yourself, which is there. So the corresponding values of 1 for y is 5. Again, it's going to be hollow because it's not including. Now sub in x equals to 5 this time into the equation, just like that, you should get -3. So the corresponding value of y for 5 is -3. Okay, so the parts of the graph that's between this point and this point are that yellow part of the graph. Okay, so have a good look. This is very similar to the previous question because now we want to find the range. What are the corresponding y values of this part of the graph? And again, guys, just to make sure, don't make the mistake of saying it's just between -3 and 5 because that's not the answer. Hope most of you can tell me that the graph, the yellow part of the graph, starts from here, which is again the vertex, which is -4. So it's from -4 up to that value of 5. Okay, so again, for the same reason as the previous question, that one is not going to be hollow. It's going to be colored in. Okay, whereas this one is hollow. So guys, what can you tell me as the answer? Y is greater or equal to -4, but just less than 5. Okay, so the equal sign is again only there. Does that make sense? Hopefully that does. Okay, because that concludes our lesson on the ranges. Okay, so always trying to figure out the values of x that it tells us, that it specifies, sub those values in and see what the graph looks like. And especially in these kind of questions, be extra careful because it's not always just going to be between this point and this point. Okay, that was some ranges.